Call this meeting to order. Everybody's awake.
We are now.
Can't hear, but we're awake, Phil. This meeting of the RMLD Board of Commissioners is being videotaped at RMLD office at 230 Ash Street, Reading, Mass. The meeting is being videotaped for distribution to the community television stations in North Reading, Wilmington, and Lynnfield. I would like to add that I got a complaint from the North Reading Selectmen that our meetings are not being submitted, not getting up to the NORCAM people in North Reading to be published, to be broadcast up there on a timely basis. So I don't see anything we can do about it. I don't know if it's something. I don't think it's our fault. I think it may be RCTV not getting the information up to them timely. But that is a complaint I have gotten. I've heard back through the channels.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I think they record it on a DVD, we make copies, and we have to get it up there, so I'll make sure that it's being delivered. My understanding that it's
Okay. NORCAM complains that they're not getting the entire meeting either. They're getting snippets of it. So there's some sort of communication problem going on there. So I've gotten that complaint back at this time. So I just wanted to bring them up. Let me read the Code of Conduct. The RMLD Board of Commissioners recognizes the importance of hearing public comment at the discretion of the chair on items on the official agenda as well as on items not on the official agenda. We ask that all questions and comments from the public be directed to the chair and that all parties, including members of the RMLD Board and Commissioners, act in a professional and courteous manner when addressing the board or responding to comments. Once recognized by the chair, all persons addressing the board shall state their name and address prior to speaking. It is the role of the chair to maintain order on all public comment and ensuing discussion. All right, very good. So, introductions. You're here tonight, Dennis? Yeah. Anything want to add, anything to say?
No, everything's good. We just did, I did want to mention that we did that solar tour, and you and I were both there, and it was actually an interesting tour, so that was
Okay.
nice.
Good, very good. All right.
We had sun.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Stenbeck is away, and he's not here tonight. Just to make that note. So we've got the citizen advisory, any liaisons, or any public comment? I see nobody here, so let's move on to the citizens advisory, the item 5, which is the citizens advisory board attendance. I attended their last meeting. The meeting was mostly about the rate, that we talked about, the rate adjustments that you have on the agenda later on tonight. The Citizen Advisory Board did vote to recommend. Can't say they were particularly enthused. I can't say they wholeheartedly endorsed it, but they did vote fully in favor of it at this point. They were concerned about the cost that it's going to have. So, and that's really all that I have under that. I'll go right to the chair. I want to make a public comment. I saw a sign out on Ash Street tonight that said, "Hate has no home here," and I totally endorse that and totally agree with that sign. I've seen several around towns, and I just want to say that I totally agree with that. A couple things we had the Wilmington solar ribbon cutting last Thursday. Went well. So that's up and running. We had a strategic session since our last meeting in terms of where we had a lot of good discussion. We got a lot of assignments for people to come back. We are looking to potentially have another meeting in early July, be our next meeting. So Tracy, you'll circulate some dates so we can maybe see when everybody's available to come back. The other thing is too, I don't know where we stand in the committee on the payment to the town of Reading. I don't know if you've heard whether people have been appointed to that or not at this point, or where we are on that at this point. So, because I'd like to call a meeting of that committee pretty soon too, at this point. So maybe the department can contact the town and see what the Reading selectmen have appointed anybody at this point, in terms of where that's going at this point. I don't know if, Dennis, has anybody been appointed on the CAB at this point?
For Winfield?
Yeah, or for
We have North Reading and Reading.
Yeah,
now.
the two members of the on the subcommittee to look at the payment of the town of Reading.
I believe George was going to
Okay.
get involved, but I will double check with him.
Okay, all right, very good. But I would like to get that committee going pretty soon at this point.
I'll mention it to him when I see him.
All right, very good. Yeah.
I'm sorry, so was there an action item on,
for me.
I think the action item is to contact the town manager's office, see where they stand on appointing any members to that committee that we had talked about from before.
Is it a selectman committee, or is it?
No, it's basically a committee of 2 members of the board, which is Mr. Stempeck and myself,
Okay.
2 members from the CAB, and either 1 or 2 members of the Reading Selectmen or designees, whoever they would like to have on that committee. They're trying to work on this thing and have some sort of report back for November.
Dan Ensminger who was here.
Yeah, he was here.
Dan was here, yeah.
He was here, but I don't know whether,
He was supposed to check, I think, so.
I don't know where that,
Contact him
I haven't
first.
heard anything back as to where that is at this
Yeah,
point.
we'll start with him and work from
I
there.
just don't want to, it's almost July, we get in July and August, and,
Yep.
Yep.
something we should do pretty soon, okay? All right, Colleen, you're up.
Okay, great. I just have a couple of announcements, and then we'll jump into the organizational study, and then Hamid's gonna do the reliability study updates. Similar to previous years, customer service will be closed on Monday, July 3rd, and Tuesday, July 4th. Customers can still drop off payments at the mailbox outside of RMLD and access and pay their bills online. RMLD held a ribbon cutting ceremony at the community solar at 326 Ballardvale as Chairman Casino just said, as well as Cabinet Lieutenant Kelly. I think it was a great event, as you've indicated. We do have a ribbon cutting coming up for our new peak generator, but that date is to be determined. So I'll send out an email as soon as we're able to confirm that. In the community engagement area, Shred the Peak info table on the training, Reading Lions Club Friends and Family Day, June 17th, Wilmington Farmer Market, June 25th. Info sessions at local senior centers, various days in June. Jane, will those days in June be included in the website calendar?
I don't believe so. There was a press release with that.
Okay.
As well as, well, we can have those updated to the calendar.
Yeah, I
We
would
met with Reading, it was very well attended in Reading, there was probably over 40 individuals attended that
Right.
one. That was last Thursday.
Okay, if you can put them on a calendar, that would be great.
Sure.
And last but not least, they've had a number of long meetings at the selectmen meeting in North Reading, so we haven't been able to get in our last quarter selectmen presentation in North Reading, but that's now been scheduled for Monday, June 19th. So those are the updates. And
Colleen?
Yep.
Mr. Chief, go ahead. Yeah, so in May, I'm just looking to see if they're there and I missed it. So on those calendar dates, we usually get them at the meeting, but I wonder if there's a way to include them in maybe the board package or something, just, some will be ones we may want to attend as board members.
at the
or is it-
local senior centers?
Yeah, just when,
Okay.
or things like when they're town day activities that RMLD is part of.
Okay. Jane, what do you wait for in order to nail down the day in June for the local senior
Oh, so
centers?
those dates have been selected.
Oh, okay.
So we've been to Reading, and we're going to be attending Winfield and Wilmington. North Reading was not interested in hosting
Okay, but do you have the dates?
I don't have them with me, but they have been selected, so I can forward those to the commission as well as update the website.
All right, great.
Yeah. And isn't there a, not that, I know that maybe there's nothing connected to RMLD for that, isn't this weekend, is this Reading Town Day or something?
Friends and family?
It's something, isn't it?
Middle school on Saturday.
No, I thought for the town, I thought they usually have something at Birch Meadow, I thought it was this weekend. They have
Fireworks are
Fireworks or
Saturday night.
something
Yeah, that is Saturday.
Yeah, but that's something, what precedes it is like a town day, isn't it?
Usually across from Birch Meadow is the town day? Yeah.
Anyway, I didn't know if there was anything connected for.
I don't think we're having any type of, these are ones that we do, like Shred the Peak tables,
Yeah, yeah.
information tables and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, it was North Reading Town Day, last Sunday.
North Reading, yeah. Okay, I'll see if I can
So
find it.
do we not plan on being at Reading Town Day?
Yeah, we'll be there, we'll have a table on educational information on Shred the Peak.
Now I'm confused.
Yeah, I don't know.
On Reading Town Day?
No, it's Reading Friends and Family at
Oh,
the First
okay.
Better School this Saturday.
Oh,
Okay,
so-
so,
Oh, okay, so we have something during that.
correct.
Oh, okay.
So it's the first one on the list that I read.
Oh, what's
I
that?
didn't-
She
I
said on the
didn't- I
list,
didn't
on the
notice
list I
that.
don't have. The list you read, yeah, I got it, yeah. Okay.
Is there a full moon tonight?
Well, the good news is together we have the whole story. So everybody's gonna show up all the
Yes.
time. Okay, thank you, Colleen.
Very good.
Yep.
Move forward.
So confused. Okay. So I'm just going to go through, everyone has seen this, we've done this a number of quarter updates, so I'm not gonna go through each one. I'm just gonna talk a little bit about the highlights. The strategic plan, right now, we're gathering this year information from the employees. We're having strategic meetings with the commission, and putting all the information together, and then the first quarter of next year, we'll put together a report.
Thank you.
It's on the iPads.
Yep.
There's no hard copy though.
Which way is it?
The six-year plan was updated as part of the budget, and that's an ongoing, every year. The electric system master plan has essentially been completed by him and his group. I think a final report, he'll probably do a presentation in September or whatever to show you where we are with the grid modernization and the entire roadmap, so. Let's see, workforce development plan is wrapping up. That means career development plans and rewritten job descriptions for everyone that works here. So, we're in the final stages of that. It's been quite an undertaking. A lot of the job descriptions have to go through the union, so it's a time-consuming process, but we're wrapping that up. So that's making great headway right there.
Yep.
Succession plannings are also part of that, as we've been redoing the job descriptions and anticipating people who may be retiring within 5 years, and making sure that the skill sets have been broadened so that other people in the groups will have opportunities to move ahead, and those type of things. Let's see. Performance review process. The way I kind of did it was when we came in, because we were redoing all the job descriptions and we were writing career development, we didn't have a review process for about 1.5 years. But now that everything is done, we just have a new review process that we've just finalized. All of the managers are sitting down with their employees and giving out the goals, and we start the process July 1st. So a year from now, everyone will be reviewed in the management union. Labor union doesn't have a review process, like a formal one. Increase efforts to fill vacant positions. We just posted 3 or 4 of the jobs this week. We have a foreman, our line foreman is retiring, and so that's been posted up. We have a couple of electrical engineering positions that are open that are posted. We have some IT positions that the union just, looked at, gave us the nod on, so they'll be posting those up. So we seem to be moving along. But again, it is quite an extensive process when it has to go through such a rigorous review. Reviewing. Let's see. Just spoke about expanding the engineering group. With signing an IBEW contract now, the engineering group is now composed of 5 positions for system engineers, that each person can go from wherever they've been assessed on their own merit up to system engineer. So you'll have 5 engineers that are all cross-trained and capable of understanding the knowledge of the system and outage information, control authority duties, and so we're very excited about that. So that was kind of wrapped up with this IBEW contract that you guys just signed last meeting. Let's see. Assess organizational culture and employee satisfaction. I think I'm probably gonna hear a lot of that when we do the review process that's coming up, so that's, I think that's when we're gonna get a lot of our input, and then a lot of that input will go into the strategic plan report.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so, Colleen, I just want to go back and then come back to this one. So, on the performance management review process, is that based on the calendar year of work? So in other words, or some companies do it by fiscal year, they do it by anniversary of the. so it's-
July 1st.
Okay. And did you say that excluded, that the union was not included in that process?
No, it is.
It is.
The evaluation, well, we have a formal evaluation process for the direct
Yep.
managers that I've sent out copies and showed you how we do
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Now we have a review, we had a review process for the IBEW middle management.
Yeah.
Okay, and we kind of put that on hold for about a year and a half or 2 cycles while we wrote all the job
Right.
descriptions and career developments.
Yep.
Because otherwise it would have been, okay, it wouldn't have started off as a
Yeah.
good evaluation
Right.
because we got
Yeah,
everyone
yeah.
restrained.
Yeah.
So that starts July 1st.
Yeah.
So all the managers have the templates now, and they're working with their employees to get
Is
them
it,
started.
is it a paper-based process? Is that what you,
Um,
or you have you're not using a software, are you? For the
no.
review, okay.
Would you like to see a copy of it?
No, I was
I've
just
showed you.
curious, when you mentioned, I didn't know if it was electronic or paper-based, but it sounds like it's similar to what's used for management. On the culture piece, I know Dave has some experience with it too. Not to suggest you do it now, but another way to address the organizational culture and feedback is through a survey, employee survey, which, we can look at that offline and give some suggestions. You'll
Right.
get some of that, as you said, in the performance
Yeah,
review.
we have an employee survey that was part of what Leidos had suggested to do.
Oh, okay.
We just wanted to finish the job descriptions,
Yeah,
the career developments, so that everybody was aware, okay, here is your job description, here are your duties.
yeah.
Here's your career development and your training, and then have all of the union contracts signed.
Yeah.
So once that's all done, now you can kind of get some feedback. Otherwise, you're getting feedback on something that it hasn't been completed yet.
Right,
They
yeah,
don't
you'll
know
get a
where
lot
it
of feedback,
falls.
and I don't know what my job is, I don't have a job
Exactly,
description, yeah.
exactly.
Good. Thank you.
Cross-divisional management training is occurring, and so is leadership training. Let's see. Hang on, 5. We are having project management training come in here, and we're gonna have either a 1-day course or a 2-day course or a 3-day course, depending on what level of project management. If you're not gonna be assigned project management, but you have to work with someone and be an administrator, help to that, then you would take like the 1-day course. If you're expected to run a project like building a generator, soup to nuts, multidisciplined, you'll be in the 3-day course. We're just trying to get prices now to bring someone in so that we can train in-house. We don't wanna start sending people out, it would be too costly, so.
Right.
Policies are ongoing, they're being updated. Risk management plan, as far as power supply, we're looking at that now. That's an ongoing process. Formalized financial accounting business processes. Wendy's been doing a great job. You've seen the changes that we've made in that, so that's moving along. Assign compliance manager and develop compliance plan and requirements. That has not been done yet. We're trying to figure out the best way to address that. So the team will be meeting on that at the next staff meeting. If we go to 11 now. 13, asset management plan. We are putting in a SPRI point, is a automated quasi work order stock timesheet system that a company out of Canada helped us build, and that's an interim while we're reviewing, Wendy and everyone, we're reviewing a work order system, like a real work order system, possibly out of Cogsdale or one of the Harris systems that we use right now. Because they have never had a true work order system here, which is best or good business practice for a utility. So, right now, we have this interim one that Wendy and I have been working on, and it's being piloted right now with the troubleman and the control room operators, and, so that should go online within the next month or two, and then we're expecting maybe by next year, we'll have a recommendation for a work order system. That will really help your asset management, your everything. It's, you know, if anybody is familiar with the work order systems, you know how, they bring everything together. Enhanced current workplace. I'd like to be able to bring everyone around for a tour maybe in September. You can kind of peek at some of the offices. They've been painted, reorganized, and desk layouts for more efficiency. People have been moved in different places so that there's better communication. So I think by September, that'll be a good time to go around and look at the physical layout. Paul McGonigal in Facilities has done an excellent job.
Nice.
That's all I have on organizational update. Any questions?
I think it's a good progress. It's nice to see the tracking, because there's a lot of stuff that we went over a couple of years ago, and,
Yeah.
you know, so it's nice to see that there's good progress being made.
Yep, okay. Any other comments? Okay.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, go
Mr.
ahead,
Chairman, I have a
Dave.
question. The leadership development for the management team,
Right.
is that already in process? Have you had training sessions, or is it about, what does it look like, I guess, is the question.
Well, there's a couple of levels of leadership. There's your middle management leadership, and so that project management and supervisory skills and responsibilities, conflict of, not conflict of interest, but conflict employee resolution and things of those are been put on everyone's career development. And so we're trying to bring, a lot of people have taken the classes in the last 6 months, but we're trying to bring in trainers to try to get more people done at the same time. On the direct report level, we have another level of management training that we're trying to put together now, under their career development plans. And, you know, so some of that I think we've discussed in executive session, so it's still kind of draft on that one.
Okay.
But the middle management is, they know what they have to take, and it's just a matter of consolidating to save money. Maybe we can do 10 people at a time. And that also includes leadership in unions, the labor unions, like
Mhm.
lead linemen, lead technicians, and any supervisors and that as well. They're all required to take leadership courses too.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions, comments from the board? Go ahead,
On the
Dennis.
work order system, you said you don't have one now. How have you been tracking work orders and labor and cost?
Very difficultly. They have a stock sheet, a paper stock sheet, that basically they would write down what they were working on, what inventory they've taken out, what inventory they've put up, the time for the day for anyone themselves or their assigned crew, and that's it. And it's been paper. And it comes in, it gets reviewed by the general foreman, and then it was getting hand-walked to 6 different places.
So how are you doing inventory management out of that? Someone was going in and deducting what someone used in
Everything
a
was
spreadsheet, or how?
Everything was being done manually, that's correct. And so Spry Point came in and they helped us. So the stock sheet has become automated, but it's become integrated. So now when you're filling it out, you're capturing your GIS facility ID points. Your time cards are drop-down boxes. Your inventory will go right into inventory. So when we get the asset management system, it will integrate in. We have a drop-down box for customer action notifications. That now it means that right on the tablet, if you go out and you leave rubber up somebody's service because they're gonna paint their house, right away, as soon as you fill that out and you get the customer to sign it, you hit send, and the email goes to the wire inspector in here, so we know that that person has some of our assets. If you need, if the person needs an electrician, we would say, you need to get an electrician. And you can come back a week later and they didn't get one, and now something's smoking. So right away, as soon as they need an electrician, they have to sign, the email goes out to the wire inspector and to us so we can follow up. There's a drop-down box for police details, so we can capture all of those requests in time. So it's quite a work of art that got put together, and it's on tablets. Each truck has a tablet, but right now we're piloting with the trouble men and the control room. Because what we want the control room to do is when trouble comes in, instead of writing it down on a slip or calling the person on the phone, you call up a trouble ticket, you fill it out, you get the customer's phone number or email if we don't have it, so that helps with our database, and then it gets sent to the troubleman's inbox. So if he's up in the bucket and he's in a dangerous situation, he doesn't want a phone going off. You wait down, you get into your truck, you open my work orders. And then you can prioritize them too, because if you got 3 in Wilmington, you can stay in Wilmington instead of driving the truck from here, over to here, over to here. So there's a lot of efficiency built in. So once that pilot is done, then we're gonna roll it out to everybody else to start using, and then we're gonna get rid of the paper stock sheets. So essentially, it's a work order system, and then the work order system that's part of the Harris system is even more integrated, because then will be able to be integrated into the GIS and the outage management system, and it will become a more of a standardized utility work order practice. But yeah, exactly, there wasn't one.
Yep.
It's amazing, but we're fixing it.
Yep.
But it's a long process.
Thank you.
And a big change for everybody, so
Yeah.
more change.
I've been involved in 5 implementations of work order systems through manufacturing and different things that help manage inventory. And the change in getting it implemented is where the trouble comes in, because it's a completely different way of doing and thinking. So getting people to adapt to it is usually the hardest part, especially when they're used to paper. Yeah.
Right. Well, and even harder is that if you had a work order system before and you knew why you needed all the information of where it was going to, and you had that big picture, maybe if you were just upgrading it, the change, this is even harder than that, because they weren't collecting enough data that needed to go where it needed to go. Do you know what I mean? So
Yep.
it's kind of a double whammy, but we're doing it. I mean, it's coming along.
Further questions or comments? Not, then we'll go, Hamid.
The reliability, thank you so much. What you have in front of you are 4 pages of the recommendations that made by a consultant that we brought in 2 years ago to do the organizational and reliability study, Booth and Associates, if you recall. So on pages 1 and 2, these are the recommendations made by them. And on pages 3 and 4, you see the recommendations made by UPG, that's the contractor who did the testing at all the substations, and we found some enormous problems, maintenance-related problems that we needed to fix. So, and the booth recommendations, we're making good progress, and I'm glad to announce that, finally the bus work at Station 5 is completed. That substation is old, has reached the end of its useful life. So we are looking for land in order to build the new substations in Wilmington area, Ballardvale Street, basically. But we need to get this substation going until we find the land. So we're talking about 3 to 5 years in order to get this project completed. In the meantime, we needed to do some upgrades and, rejuvenate the bus work at the switchgear. So as we were making repairs and reinsulating the bus, we found out asbestos, that we had to kind of prolong the project. So we had to now put the operation to a halt, remediate the asbestos, and then get back in and do the reinsulation, reinsulating more. So that is finally done, completed. So I feel good about it, because that switchgear's life has been extended, I would say, for another 5 to 10 years. So that's going to give us enough time to build a new substation and, get that done, hopefully transfer everything to the new substation. So that is completed. The rest of them, we've got some others that they're in progress. That's like GIS, the data collection is underway, and the data collection actually is completed. We are checking their work, the contractors' work, DRGs, and after it's supposed to be completed by September 1st, and then we're gonna push that into MillSoft model, engineering model, so we can do our engineering analysis with more accuracy. Right now, we have a model that we just made a temporary model, and that's how we're doing our engineering analysis to make sure everything is safe, sound, and secure. So that's being done. And some of the SCADA work that it's underway right now, we got consultants that actually this week from Schweitzer and Surveillance that they are in, and they are upgrading the SCADA as well as programming the substation 3, substation 4, so we can get telemetry data, all of those substations, as well as connecting the station 3, station 4 to Eversource and National Grid, so we could join the overall 115 kV network and operating the breakers in coordination with the REMWEC, or soon we're going to be converting to convex to Eversource. So it's going really good. I'm glad about the progress that we're making. So that's pages 1 and 2 you see, and pages 3 and 4, all the critical items that were identified as a result of testing every piece of equipment at the substations by UPG, they're all completed. We got minor issues that we're dealing with, they're in progress, but the major ones, they're all completed.
The power outage we just had in Wilmington, that was part of Substation 5 and the upgrades, right?
Yeah, the upgrades of what?
Was that part of the settings and upgrades at Substation 5?
Substation 5 was the bus. The bus is old. The bus installation was actually gone. It was tracking, and that should have been, taken care of 4 or 5 years ago. Unfortunately, when we got to that, and when I saw that 3 years ago when I came in, I saw that some tracking, which was dangerous, and that prompted us to test the switchgear, and considering the age, so we needed to open everything up, see what's going on behind there, why it's tracking. And while we started troubleshooting, we found out that there are some problems with the bus, and we got that.
I don't think that was the question, right?
No.
No.
As part of the upgrades,
Yeah.
weren't there?
No, it wasn't because of the upgrades. Dennis is asking about the outage the other night where the drawing setting didn't match the relay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about
Wasn't
that.
that Substation 5?
That was a station 5, yes. That was the relay issue that, what the setting was set wrong. The CT was wrong.
And that's why it didn't come back up.
That's why it didn't come back up. Then what we did some switching, and then we brought everything back in.
But may I say something?
Go ahead.
But that wasn't a new setting. That wasn't like,
That was an old setting.
that's an old setting.
Which was-
That wasn't part of an upgrade.
Right. The CT wasn't part of the upgrade. The CT was set to, it was wrongly identified as 1200 to 5, while it was 600 to 5. So the ground pickup of the relay, rather than being, 240, it was actually down to 120.
Yep.
So 120 amps, that picked up and dropped the load, and they patrolled the line. There were no problems with the line, so we isolated, switched it off, and then now it's fixed. So we brought it up. That was a mistake on the print. And
Thank you.
go ahead.
I mean, you said a term I wasn't familiar with, tracking. When you
Yeah.
were talking about tracking, what does that mean?
Well, the tracking is whenever that, where the energized electrical equipment is tracking to ground. If it's too close, there should be certain distance, so
Okay.
the air is acting as an insulator. So when that distance is short, and in the switchgear, everything's so compact. So the bus is so close to the metal clad, the metal portion of the switch. So what happens when the insulation wears off, it starts tracking.
Okay.
So when it starts tracking, you see black dots, black spots on the side of the switchgear, and that's a sign of trouble. That means that, it could go at any given moment. And
Thank you.
that's what prompted us to do that repair. And it's repaired, it's fixed now, it's safe.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Good progress, lots of good
Yeah,
projects.
good, we're making good progress in those, yeah.
Good.
Thank you.
Any comments, questions?
Nope.
Nope. All right, we can move on to the power supply report.
Can I just take Mayhew's
Yep.
presentation first, and then I'll move
Yep,
on?
that's fine. Come on right up, Mayhew. Mayhew, we all know you, but can you identify yourself and who you are?
Yes, good evening. I'm Mayhew Seavey. I'm with the firm of Powerline Models, PLM, in Hopkinton, Massachusetts.
Go ahead. Welcome.
I'm here to make the final recommendations for rates for fiscal 18. I think you have the best and final presentation in front of you. I'll try to see if I can. Oh, beautiful, brilliant. So I've listed here the objectives that we set out to accomplish with the rate design this time. This is in addition, of course, to producing sufficient revenue to cover all of the expenses and capital requirements of the department. So the baseline rate design was to essentially increase revenues to the level that would produce the required rate of return. Within that, we wanted to address some other issues in the rate design itself, and they included reducing or eliminating subsidies between and within classes of customer. This is something that we spent quite a bit of time talking about. We wanted to ensure that the rates for large, high load factor customers, the so-called good customers, can continue to attract and retain such customers. We want to be sure that the rates are reflecting the cost of providing service for some of the types of expenses that you have, such as capacity and transmission, which have changed significantly over the years. The rates are no longer reflecting the proper price signal. And we want to, again, provide price signals to encourage customers to reduce demand during peak periods and increase usage during off-peak periods. This should be beneficial to the customer. It should be also beneficial to the non-participating customers because it will reduce your total costs and therefore prevent you having to increase rates still further. We're looking to phase in some of these changes over a period of time to permit the customers time to adjust in response to the new price signals that they're being given. And finally, we wanted to do something to protect distribution revenues from erosion due to customer-owned generation, specifically at this time solar generation, but there's also some concern about other types of generation that customers could install and battery storage as well. The phase-in that we're proposing here moves beyond a simple across-the-board increase in the distribution rates and adjusts the rates for residential, commercial, industrial customers in such a way as to move them towards more uniform rates of return. The residential rate of return should be increased up to 0, which right now is significantly negative over that 5-year period. At the same time, the commercial rate of return should be reduced from high double digits down to hopefully low double digits. And in the industrial rate, it will remain right about where it's at now because the industrial rate of return is quite low and appropriate for customers in that size. The first column of numbers is the percent increase that customers would have seen if we simply went for an across-the-board increase in distribution rates that's sufficient to cover expenses and produce the target 8% rate of return. The reason that those vary is that the main reason that rates need to increase as much as they do has nothing to do with your distribution rates. It has to do with capacity and transmission costs increasing significantly. And capacity and transmission costs make up a much larger percentage of commercial and industrial rates, total rates, than they do of residential rates. Residential customers pay a fairly high distribution charge, and so their total bill has less capacity and transmission in it. So you'd see that that commercial and industrial rates would, with an across-the-board increase in distribution rates, would increase less than the commercial, industrial, residentials would. What we're doing in this is the first year of a 5-year phase-in of the adjustment, increasing the residential rates, reducing the commercial rates, keeping the industrial rates about the same, so that you can see that the residential increase, instead of being 5.6, is 6.6%, while the commercial rate, instead of being an increase of 5.7%, is only 3.5%. There will be similar changes each year, although we will come back each year and revisit them, because a large part of this that's relatively unpredictable and beyond our control are those capacity and transmission costs. So we'll have to revisit those and take another look at the 5-year phase-in. The graph here shows those percentage changes over 5 years based on the projections that we have today. What we expect in terms of increases in your own operating and maintenance costs, and also the expected changes in capacity and transmission and purchased energy costs. And you can see that the commercial increases are less each year than the residential, and the industrial are quite a bit less than residential, and then quite a bit more in fiscal 22, and that's a big increase in capacity and transmission costs that take place at that time, that drowns out the relatively small increase in distribution costs. But the important thing to see here is that while we're having some fairly significant increases in fiscal 18, we're mostly looking at decreases in the 3 years after that, because capacity costs are trending back down again after fiscal 18, and we don't actually know what capacity costs are going to be in fiscal 22 because that auction hasn't taken place yet. So we'll have a better idea when that time comes. Oh, you're doing it. Great. Thanks. I appreciate that. This shows a breakdown of a typical 750 kilowatt hour residential bill into the base rate or distribution costs, the energy fuel adjustment, and purchase power. And you can clearly see how the base rate in the case of the residential rate is increasing pretty steadily, a few percent each year. While some of the other costs, like purchase power, spiking up in 18 and then going down in 20 and 21. So again, the net effect is that in fiscal 18 you have an increase, and then things are pretty flat for the next 3 years. So we're really looking at 4 years of pretty moderate rate change, pretty much flat rates. And the same thing on the commercial. The commercials actually show some decrease in fiscal 20 and 21 because their base rate increases are very small, and when the capacity and transmission costs go down in actually just capacity costs, then they'll actually see some slight decreases. By the end of that period of time, you'll have rates that are much more uniform, much more quote-unquote fair to different classes of customer. and still quite competitive and attractive, particularly for the commercial and large industrial customers. And finally, the industrial shows actually a pretty sizable decreases after the next year in 19, 20, and 21. Again, because of those capacity costs going down, and because capacity and transmission is just a much bigger portion of the industrial customer's bill. Now, they pay very little in cents per kilowatt hour terms for their base rate usage, their distribution usage, because they're large users, they have high load factor, and they're using the power very efficiently. Another recommendation having to do with getting the price signals correct is that we're looking to phase in a purchase power capacity and transmission demand charge. In the past, all of those costs have been recovered through an energy charge. As we pointed out in a previous presentation, that tends to be a subsidization of poor load factor customers by good high load factor customers. And by charging the correct price signal for demand, we remedy that situation and provide some rate relief to customers who use their demand a lot. And that's what you want to do. This will have an impact because it will be increasing rates to customers with poor load factors. But if we phase it in over 3 years, the impact can be minimized, and in fact, only one customer in the first year is going to see an increase of more than 10%. And with the decreases that we saw in the previous slide, in the years following that, there shouldn't be any customers seeing an increase, even with the additional phase-ins of the demand. So this is a pretty as painless a way of doing a significant shift of revenue from energy to demand charges as you can accomplish. We also took a look at the renewable generation rate, the so-called net metering rate, and the finding that we came up with was that while there is a subsidization going on, it's relatively small right now. It's in the vicinity of, I think it was $15,000 or $20,000 a year for the existing 80 customers. And that it seemed reasonable to, rather than putting a cap on the total amount of solar installed on the system, as the private utilities have done because they were required to by regulation, that instead to cap the total amount of subsidy at a level that, while it's significant, $100,000 a year, still only represents a cost to an average residential customer of 11 cents a month. So it gives us time to develop a response that will not be perceived as discouraging renewable energy development, that it won't do any harm to existing customers who have made investment in facilities, and it's a good way to provide some protection for revenues at a level when if it becomes significant, and I think this will probably buy you quite a bit of time to keep an eye on development. We are immediately recommending to put in place a backup and standby rate to protect against customers installing larger amounts of generation, particularly non-renewable generation like backup and standby generators or cogeneration systems, combined heat and power systems. So we've got a proposed rate like that that's going into place.
Sure, go ahead.
May I just would like you to clarify this charge, to protect us. I just want the customers to understand what that means. It's to protect everyone because we still have to pay for distribution charges. We still have to keep the system up and running.
That's right.
I just want you to
yes.
clarify that so that it doesn't seem like we're trying to penalize people for putting in solar, or, there's no penalty for that.
No.
We just have to recover as a municipal our production charges, and we still have to have the electric system up and running and maintained.
Yes, the important thing is to make sure that everybody who uses the distribution system supports it appropriately. And when a customer installs generation behind their meter, they're paying less, and they're continuing to use the distribution system just as much. So it continues to the idea is to continue to recover the revenues to maintain, own, and operate the distribution system, because if you don't, the rates will have to rise for everybody. Either that, or you don't earn enough money to cover your expenses and continue to maintain the system. There's no indication that you're in danger of any sort of catastrophic revenue loss at this point. It's more important to establish some precedents here, particularly in the form of the backup and standby rate, where we have this on the books, that that we have this rate, so that if customers begin to look at generating all or a significant portion of their own electricity through whatever means, they won't make a bad decision thinking that they can get away with not paying for any of the distribution system. The backup and standby rate makes it clear that you will pay to have the distribution system out there when and if you need it, whether or not you're using it today. That make sense?
We get it, yeah. So what if somebody decided to just disconnect from RMLD? Would they still have that ability to do that?
Yes, they can always do that, and it's a very risky thing to do, but it's their responsibility.
Mr. Chairman, I have one question too. You said would be safe, that cap of 100,000 would be safe for a few years. What do you estimate? How many years would it take to get up to that cap, the way trends are going with people getting their own?
What's been the number of new residential solar installations?
80 total. It's been about 20 to 30 installations per year.
Mm-hmm.
And again, cost would be a driving force.
So how many would we need? 300? About 300?
Yeah, so at the present rate, that would be 10 years.
Okay.
You're essentially, and there may be, you may reach a tipping point in the economics of these where all of a sudden it becomes a no-brainer to install them, in which case those 300 could happen overnight. So that's why I'm sure the people here will notice that long before it becomes a problem, because people will be coming in and getting permits and.
Only, what is the amount of the standby rate that we're contemplating? And this is just a recommendation at this point also.
Well, the backup and standby rate is actually going, I think that's being filed? Yes. And so the backup and standby charge is the present distribution rate times the amount of capacity that the customer wants you to back up. So if they install a 2 megawatt generator, they're going to pay 2,000 kilowatts times however many dollars per kilowatt the present distribution rate is. So the idea is that they're going to continue to pay the distribution rate whether or not they run the generator, but they'll still be able to avoid purchase power and capacity and fuel charge. So, but those are expenses that you avoid. So you don't lose money if a customer buys fewer kilowatt hours from you. You purchase fewer kilowatt hours. So
And to be clear, we're not voting on this tonight, though. This is a recommendation that's being presented to us. We're not voting on a backup and standby rate tonight. We are.
Yeah.
We are.
I thought we haven't reached we haven't reached this cap yet.
Oh, this is separate from the renewable energy cap. This is a backup and standby rate for large customers who are installing large generators. It doesn't apply to solar installations.
Who's it affecting? right now? Who will it affect right now?
Nobody. The intent is to have it on the books, essentially as, if you will, as a deterrent to customers installing, combined heat and power systems, or solar projects that are larger than they actually need, because it's.
May I continue, may I ask?
Keep going, keep going.
How many municipals have backup and standby rates on the books now?
Most of the municipals that I do rate design for have one. It's
For example,
it's about half.
Okay, like which ones? Just curious.
Oh, Mansfield, Middleborough, Hudson, Littleton.
We're just following in the footsteps of our municipal siblings.
Wellesley,
Ours
Concord.
is modeled after those.
What, may I?
Go ahead. Yeah.
I mean, there's a strategy to
Yeah,
this
yeah.
entire thing, and when I came, the first thing we did was unbundle, because we knew this was coming. And so you separate the whole bundle out so that you go through each charge, and then people can see. So as they start to put solar on, and as May you said, so I asked them to clarify that, if large customers are producing all of this power, we still have to pay for a distribution system, and this
Of course.
this is just,
I was just-
you wouldn't wait until all of a sudden we're being hurt and all the other customers
Understood.
have to have a rate increase. That's why we're
I
putting
totally
it
understand. I'm only asking how many other municipals have this, and now I have the answer. That's all.
I'd say about half.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good. Thank you.
So in the residential time of use rate, we looked at this. We came up with a suggestion for making it work better, and we're not proposing to implement that at the present time because I think there are problems with implementing it through the billing system. The idea was presently the time of use is in the distribution rate, in the base rate, and there's no time varying component in distribution charges. It should be in the purchase capacity and transmission charge where you have the on and the off peak component. So we'll address that at some point in the future, but at the present time, we just made how did what do we do with the time use? It's,
Multiple factors to both the on and the off.
yeah, we just basically increase the on and the off peak across the board. So that's left for the next time.
The time of use people won't get dinged as hard this year,
Or
or they will.
The
What's the
time of
bottom
use rate is one that's looking at a higher increase because it's too low.
I understand what you said.
So
but-
it's
But this new wrinkle, may I?
Go ahead.
This new wrinkle that you've just described means that the rate increase that we're doing tonight is not gonna be as high as we thought it would be for the
it will be. It'll just be
implemented a different way.
it'll just be in the time of use base rate rather than going to a flat rate and increasing that. The increase is, the amount of the increase is the same as it would have been.
Okay.
And the last thing that we took a look at was the electric vehicle rate. We had created a pilot rate in 2014 that was designed around 3 charging stations at Analog, and it was based on some estimates of usage and the cost of installing those particular facilities. We took a look at how that's been working, at the cost of how the cost of those charging stations has changed, and there was not enough usage data in particular to really be conclusive as to whether the existing rate is adequate, too high, or too low. So we're proposing to put a rate in place that reflects the usage patterns that we've seen at Analog and the costs for new charge stations that we've been quoted. And we've essentially increase the usage estimates because if we use the actual usage, the actual kilowatt hours that people were using at analog, the rate would have needed to have been quite a bit higher because they're not being used as much as we expected. So the rate that we're proposing is roughly equivalent to the rate that was the pilot rate, and we recommend that go into place and that we monitor the usage of new charging stations as they go in to see whether there's any need to adjust that going forward. You're always, with an electric vehicle rate, you don't want to raise it too high because then nobody will use it and it becomes the equivalent of the death spiral. You have to keep raising the rates. So,
May I ask a question about the electric? As an owner of an electric vehicle, I have some experience with when I use charging stations and where. So, are you saying the rate is set to how much we're paying for the installation of the chargers, not just what the electricity is costing?
well, yes, the rate is designed to recover the cost of the charging station.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
otherwise that cost would be borne by all the rest of the ratepayers.
Right. So, and the location of the charging station is going to dictate both how much it costs to put in and how much gets used.
Yes.
So where are we proposing to put them in? We're proposing to put them in right here at the RMLD?
Putting two, I believe, in here.
And where else?
Well, we have grant money, so it's supposed to be one per town, over the next 4 years. And the reason why there's two here is because one is the grant and one is because we're replacing one of our vehicles.
Right.
When it's time to replace it, with
With an
electric
electric
vehicles. So
vehicle.
we'll have a dual charging station that we can charge our car and
Got
then
it.
someone else can use it.
So,
Go ahead, keep going.
I don't see anybody driving to the RMLD parking lot and running their credit card and sitting here for a half an hour, which would be the fastest it could possibly be to be useful. I don't really see that as something that will happen. I would never do it. I have a trickle charge overnight at my house, and there's free chargers here and there. The way it works is when they're set at a place where people are going to go anyway, like a shopping mall, their job, a downtown area, where when it's charging, they have something they can go and do. So I would just give some feedback that when we think about citing them, just paying a lot of money to cite them here for the public it may not work out the way we think it will work. But for our stuff, you can, anywhere where there's a 240 volt dryer type outlet, you can just put for $600, you can get a 6.6 kilowatt charger, which is what you're contemplating putting in anyway, and just plug it into the dryer outlet. So that could happen in a garage here, right now, for nothing. So for our internal uses, we don't need to spend a lot of money on.
Well, as Dave had indicated, one of the places where you install it is at work. So we were trying to encourage
Employees.
to get an electric vehicle as they start to turn
Well,
over
that's
their
okay.
next cars.
Sure.
And we can't have everyone plugging into a company vehicle
Okay,
dryer.
got it. I was thinking of it as a public thing
Right,
that
and
you,
that's one of the things I see, and, when I park in the garages downtown.
right.
You see, they've got, charges in a lot of these
Yep.
now parking garages.
Okay, I see what you mean. So when it's viewed that way, then I retract my earlier comments.
No, but it is a good comment, though. I mean, it'd be nice if they could have one, maybe in one of the public, parking areas here in each of the towns.
Right, like in the downtown.
In the downtown
Right,
area.
in the parking lot downtown.
The parking
behind
lot
the
behind
shops.
the Main Street.
That
store.
would be a great
Or at a
place.
school, for example.
Or at a school
Yep.
parking
Well,
lot.
it's gonna be one per town, and we'll work with the town as to
Right.
where the best.
Right where the best place is. Right, okay, that sounds good.
Well, hopefully we can do more than one. I mean, if the concept is put them where there's employees parking all day, that's a good concept. And then it seems to me like we should be going for scale, because I think we're going to see scale.
Well, in
In-
our strategic meeting, if we look at that electric vehicle like Braintree does, the charging stations at people's homes and things like that, and you get into that type of business, then they even have an electric vehicle leasing program, correct?
Right.
So they are really engaging in the community to bring in electric vehicles and putting in charging stations, so,
It's
it
great to be doing.
doesn't mean that we can't put in more, but we're not gonna build them and see if they come. They're gonna have to come and we build them, because
Exactly.
we have so many other things to spend the money
Exactly.
on, so.
And the only other thing is, what are we gonna do when people have them plugged in and it's the afternoon and it's our peak and we got 300 electric cars charging and we're charging 11 cents an hour, a kilowatt.
They can't be programmed,
Yeah,
right?
they can be programmed
They're
that we
programmed.
can either shut them off or reduce the amount of demand that we're allowed to be drawn at a
That's-
certain.
For those days we think might be peak days.
Correct.
And people will be told, be warned if it's 98 degrees out.
You can flash a message
Yeah.
and then we can contact them.
Well, thanks. It's great.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, I have a procedural question. This is coming forward, this is not gone to the CAB. I need to know why this was not brought in time to the CAB.
What wasn't?
This is not
The-
gone in front of the CAB, the electrical
Yeah.
vehicle charging rate.
That's true.
They do not have the CAB does not have a vote on this. So if we approve this tonight, it's gonna have to be contingent on going back to the CAB and getting their approval. And I'd like an explanation, why this now and why was it not brought to the CAB?
It was an oversight, I'll take responsibility for that.
Okay.
We were focusing on the other ones, and this one slipped through the cracks, so we asked that we put it on your agenda so that it could be effective July 1st, contingent on it being approved at the June 21st CAB.
Okay, all right. I'll express the opinion that I'm not happy that this is coming before us and didn't get to the CAB first. Let me express that concern, okay? Go ahead, Mr. Commissioner.
So, since Dennis is here, what's your perspective, not that you make the decision for the cab totally, Dennis, but in terms of any guidance that you would suggest?
Well, this is the first time I've seen it and
Yeah.
how to actually start trying to process it.
Yeah.
So Dave's had a lot of good input to like make me think about things, so I think I like a little more detail, and I think the other members of our board are gonna want a little more detail to understand the fees and the rates and how it's all gonna work. I mean, Dave being a electric car owner, obviously, it
Yep.
is one-to-one to him, where it's not gonna be to the CAB, so, no, we've had a few times where I think, Phil brought up a good point, that the data we had wasn't the same as what you guys maybe not the same, but maybe we didn't have it all, and we've mentioned it a few times, so getting something like this in the meetings would have been good when we were all there, but, we do meet next week, and, again, I don't know how much knowledge the rest of the group will have with electric cars. I don't think any of them own an electric car, so, getting a little more detail on it, we could probably make a educated decision then. But, like I said,
Maybe it's worth, can we defer this rate tonight? And do the rest of it, because it's not like we have stations up yet. Because I actually, as Dennis is talking, I have new thoughts that I don't know, I think thinking about it a little bit more might be good to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Jane, is there, if we pull that piece out, does that impact anything in terms of the operations? Would that cause any difficulty? Okay.
All right, good.
And the one other thing I'd throw into the mix is, as a time of use customer who will take one for the team tonight in voting to increase my rates more than everybody else's, what do I pay overnight at my house, Jane? 6 cents?
You're incredible, yes.
So overnight,
Percent of you use off-peak.
yeah, so Jane has just disclosed my family's personal electricity use with a breakdown of what items we use overnight. But the car is the main one. So I pay 6 or 7 cents overnight to charge my car, and it's great. Thank you very much for the time of use rate, everybody. I would never use this because I'm not going to go, unless I had to, I'm not going to pay 11 cents at my job, because if I can make it home, which I can, I wouldn't pay that much. I'd wait till the night, and I'd pay 6 cents overnight. So whatever it is, 7. So that's just one other thing to think about. When we map what our charges are, we should think about how that will actually work. What are people's options? And the only other thing is there's a company called ChargePoint and others who operate, and I don't know how they do it. I mean, they're obviously using the local electric company, and yet I'm paying ChargePoint when I'm at a ChargePoint station. So how does that actually work? Because they're not allowed to resell electricity.
Well, they are, as long as they're not in a municipal utility service territory.
Oh, okay.
And,
I see.
because they can be a licensed retail seller of electricity.
And there's no deal we can strike with a company like that we're the ones selling the electricity? Because if you're in the ChargePoint network, then you show up on their app, and that means you bring in a whole other possible sheaf of, huge numbers of customers that will know that you're there. How?
Analog, our equipment at Analog is a ChargePoint station.
Okay.
So they swipe the card, it goes through ChargePoint, and then we get the revenue from ChargePoint.
Okay, so we're doing that now. So
Correct.
is that what we're contemplating doing here as well?
Most likely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that will be part of. Okay. Then.
Yeah, because all the ones that
Yeah,
you see
and-
downtown are all charge point
Okay.
stations.
Then
Yeah.
I didn't know that's how this was going to work.
And it really, in a sense, what you're selling is a convenience and a service rather than a commodity, because people have the ability to do it at home for much less. But if you're at work, you can't
Right.
drive home and charge your
and
car.
if you have to drive 150 miles after work or something. Right.
Yeah,
All right, I get it a little bit better now.
Just as
there's
information,
a little bit of a convenience premium.
Research Charge Point.
Yep.
It's a privately owned company.
Yep.
With close to, I believe, $500 million in venture capitalists
Ooh. Wow.
behind it.
So what are we paying ChargePoint to do analog? What are they getting out of that?
There's a 10% fee that they charge us to process the payment.
That's a lot. Too
They
bad.
get 10% of the sale.
The fee, correct.
And that's just to use their name. Like they're like white labeling. Basically, that's just to use the ChargePoint name and be on their app.
Well, no, it's for that as well as actually taking and processing the credit card payment. That goes right through them, and then we receive a check for it.
We could disrupt that somehow. Anyway, sorry I'm monopolizing this. It's interesting and it's going to be big.
Yep. Not a problem. All right, do you have any other questions or comments? Or-
Good discussion.
If not, I will entertain the motion. Somebody want to make the motion? Mr. O'Rourke?
Yes.
To make the motion? Okay. All right, so the motion is that the Board of Commissioners approved rates DPU numbers 269, 270, 271, 272, 273, 274, 275, and 276, effective July 1st, 2017, on the recommendation of General Manager. That's the motion you made.
Yes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Further discussion? I see none. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed? That motion carries 4-0. Let the record reflect that. And I think we're pretty much in agreement that we will hold off on the second motion, defer that to a future meeting.
That's that one right there? Okay, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mayhew.
Phil, just a quick question.
Go ahead.
When we talk about that at the Citizen Advisory Board next week, who is sitting in from you guys on that one? Only question is if it's Dave, then obviously he's bringing knowledge of electric cars. If it's,
Okay, try to make it.
You available?
What is it? What is it?
It's next, the 21st, which I believe is next Wednesday.
I don't think I can, but I can maybe phone in if it's
I was just
helpful.
curious. I don't know if anyone's had any questions, because
I actually had my questions answered just now, and.
No, he's, I think, talking about
For the CIB, I was
their
thinking more of.
questions.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I'm
So,
sorry.
'cause-
I apologize.
And, again, I don't know if Jason or someone may have experience with it on our board, that he may have some, but I just, it was interesting to get your perspective at all, being a.
Yeah, if I could, I would, and I'm happy to call in too. I might be out of town.
Yeah,
Okay.
Not a problem.
Why don't we do that? Why don't you make it a point to call in then? The meeting's what, 6:30?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I had planned to cover that meeting next Wednesday.
And maybe no one will have any questions. I just, like I said, I picked up a lot by the time of use discussion from your point of view and the electric car charging stations, so.
So Phil, are you planning on going with?
I was planning on going next Wednesday.
Does it make sense to have both?
What? Oh, right. Hey, the more the merrier. If we all
No,
wanna
well,
show,
I think-
we all wanna show up, we can all show up.
No, I'm just thinking in case Dave's,
No, if Dave-
not able to.
Yeah, I certainly, but, you know, they're looking for somebody who has personal electrical vehicle knowledge.
Yeah.
I don't have an electrical vehicle or a hybrid,
Yeah.
that's gonna be my next car, I gotta be honest with you.
But that's not the only agenda
Tesla.
item.
Right. They also want to discuss some other things with the CAB. Yeah, so. Okay. All right, very good. Jane, come forward. That's all right, get ready for you.
Thank you. I'm here to report on April and May purchase power. So we've created a few slides here to look at the first quarter, and we've compared 2016 to 2017. So this first chart looks at the kilowatt hour sales for the first quarter. And as you can see for the quarter, in 2017 we have about 216 million kilowatt hours compared to 210 that was in 2016. So this is up about 2.88%, a little less than 3%. However, when you look at the full fiscal year, we're considerably flat. We're less than 1%. It's 0.6% higher in 17 than 16, and that's with May and June estimated right now. So it was a productive quarter. This next slide looks at the revenue received from the purchase power, capacity, and transmission. And if we look at total revenue for the quarter, 2016 to 2017, it's about 500,000 less in 2017 than 2016. Two contributing factors are related to this. In 2016, our sales were down about 2.6%. So we had to recover more dollars over less kilowatt hours. In 2017, as I mentioned before, we're relatively flat. We're up about 1%. In addition, in 2016, our revenue initially in the beginning of the year was less than our expenses. So what we try to do in the fiscal year is recover our full purchase power capacity costs. And so those get updated monthly. So there was necessity to increase our PPCT in the third quarter because of that situation. In 2017, our revenues were exceeding our expenses, so that would allow us to decrease it in the third quarter as opposed to overall. Overall, the capacity and transmission expenses from 2016 to 17 increased about 5.6% or $1.7 million. So it doesn't really show it in this quarter, but overall there was an increase in those revenues based on the fiscal year. This next slide looks at the capacity, transmission, and fuel. Again, January through April 2016 is the first bar, and 2017 is the darker shaped bar. And this is just reflective of our expenses. Now that we have quite a bit of hydro projects within our portfolio, we thought it would be interested to look at precipitation and how that relates to the hydro projects. So this first chart looks at the precipitation by inches for the first quarter, 2016 versus 2017. The highlights of this is that in January and April in 2017, we had considerably higher precipitation than we did in 2016. Overall, for the quarter, the average was 3.5 inches compared to 2.6 inches. So that was good for our hydro projects, as we'll see in the next couple slides. This looks at the production. The blue graphs represent the 2016 figures, and the purple represent 2017. And similar to the last slide, January and April, the productions were up for those hydro projects that we have purchase power agreements with. And then we just kind of try to look at these precipitation levels and their effect on the energy product related to the hydros and the spot market. Hydros really don't dictate the spot market. They're kind of run a river. Natural gas is really what the commodity is that dictates the spot market. However, the more hydro that we have, the less we have to buy in the spot market, so that's a good thing. And these projects have been very beneficial to us within our portfolio. So that one is the 2016 number. And then this one looks at the 2017. And as we talked about, January and April had considerably higher precipitation, thus higher hydro production in 2017 than it did in the previous year. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Questions? Comments?
Thanks, Jane.
I see none.
Thank you.
Jane? Wendy, you're up next.
Okay, good evening. Reporting on April 2017 financials. And the first thing we want to take a look at is accounts receivable. We're running about 82% in FY17, 82% current. And when you look at 30 to 90 days, it's about another 15%. And only 3% over 90 days is outstanding. So that's pretty fantastic. And if you compare that to FY16, there were 89% current, 9% 30 to 90 days, and only 2% over 90 days. And we've improved greatly since FY15, where we had 75% current, 20% 30 to 90 days, and 5% over 90. So I think we're on the right track. We had two moratorium, how did you phrase that? I'm sorry. Okay, and ended in April, and we had two big pushes, so we should see some of those effects either in May or June. Depends on the timing of that.
Phil, can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Is that commercial, residential, all types of
Yes,
customers?
it's all,
It's all
yes,
mixed
it
in?
is. It's our complete accounts receivable aging.
And is there a difference usually on who's further out? Is it usually the commercial, industrial customers? It's not?
No.
We have the ability to shut off commercials for
Okay.
non-payment, and there's a moratorium for residentials from November through April.
Okay.
So it tends to be more
It's usually residential?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Okay. So then we're going to look at our base revenue.
Come on, gotta get this guy.
Our base revenue as compared to our operating expenses. So in FY17, year-to-date so far, we're looking at $21,660,000 in base revenue compared to FY16 of $19,702,000, which is approximately about a 10% increase. And that compares to the budget of $21,250,000, so it's slightly above budget, about 1.6% more than anticipated. So we're looking pretty good there. And the base revenue compared to our operating expenses is pretty much right on target with a 10% increase as well. FY17 actual, I'm sorry, FY17, yes, year-to-date, $17,538,000 as compared to FY16 of $15,915,000. And then when you compare that to the budget, we're about 1.4% less than anticipated at about $17,837,000. So overall, we're right on target budget-wise, and increasing our base revenue to our operating is pretty much straight on. Okay? So then, as Jane just went over, the PPCT revenue is about $28.2 million compared to the expense of $26.8 million. And the fuel revenue, $27.7 million compared to fuel expense of $27.4. So as she mentioned, the pass-through of $1.7 million excess in revenue will actually bring our true net income to about $4 million. And as that compares to last year, $3.6 million, again, it's about a 10% increase. And as far as the budget, the overall budget, we're looking at about an 18% increase right now. We have to remember that with year end, there are a lot of adjustments that come on the books that are not reflected through each month. So the timing of that really matters. So we actually, speaking of which, we had our auditors in-house yesterday, and they They did some preliminary testing. They were supposed to be here again today, but they didn't need to be. So that's a good sign that we're right on target where we need to be. And then if you look at the overall, I just like to show you the overall expenses, the operating expenses, and where they compare month to month, FY17 to FY16, and how it compares to the budget. And it tells exactly the story that I just mentioned. Any questions in relation to that?
Questions or comments from anybody?
And of course, you have the financials in front of you as well, if you,
Yep.
you know.
Very good.
That's good, thank you, Wendy.
Okay?
Okay, thank you, Wendy.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Wendy.
Reed, I think you're up again? Yep.
He's back.
Oh, you got Mike.
Two sets of glasses?
Right.
Come on, you're not that old.
Thank you. I'm glad to report the month of March and April 2017. The first page, you see the capital improvement projects, the list of them. For the month of March, we spent approximately $40,644 on the last item for the LEDs. But the total year-to-date total for both months, that shows for every category of the projects. The next slide, if you go, that's a routine construction that shows the year-to-date spending. The total for the month of March and April is $1,606,613. So that's year-to-date for those months. But overall, for the FY17, we budgeted $9.5 million, which so far we've spent approximately $5.8 million. So the balance remaining is 3.7, which, as you could see, for the month of June and July, June for the month of June, that we're going to report the next month, you're going to see approximately, that we're going to catch up. Because we got a project, DG project, that we're going to have to pay, and that's going to bring it up to approximately 9.5, 9.6 million maybe. The next page shows the routine maintenance. Those are 7 plans that we implemented. Basically, we are on target. We're making good progress on those, all of those. I'm not going to go over single one by one, but I'm glad to report that we're making good progress on those. Especially for the pole inspections, the transformer replacements, and also the substation maintenance. We found no problems, the hot spots, that every month we check the industrial parks as well as the substations, and no problems were found in any of those. The next slide, I guess it's going to show you the double poles, or the poles, the ownership and the custodial. We've been over this many times. I'm sure by now the people, they memorize that, and they know exactly what the difference is between the custodial and the ownership. Ownership is 50-50 between us and Verizon. Custodial is Reading. We split between RMLD and Verizon, and North Reading is RMLD. The other 2 towns, Linfield and Wilmington, is Verizon's responsibility. The next slide shows you the engines report, basically the ball in court. So you see that pretty much, again, we're making good progress on those. In the town of North Reading, we got about 107 pole bots that has to be pulled out of the ground. That shows that the progress being made by doing the transfers, and everybody has transferred, and now we're gonna have to remove those that the guys are making progress on those. So I'm happy to see that. Again, these numbers, they go up and down because we have lots of construction going on throughout all those 4 communities. As we making these upgrades, you're going to see these numbers going up, the double poles. But we get to them and we prioritize them, and we do the transfers. And if Verizon and Comcast, they do the transfers, usually we are right after them pulling the pole bots out of the ground. So That shows the double pole conditions, and then the next slide, it shows the reliability indices, SAIDI, KD, and SAFE, which basically tells you about the health and well-being of the system. Our reliability is good in all categories. We are well below national and regional average. And these numbers, the benchmarkings, they're set by APPA. That everybody reports to those numbers, and then they tell us what has been the numbers in our region and compared to national where we are. So we're doing very well on those. The next slide shows you the outage causes. As you could see on the right, you see the annual average from 2012 to 2017, which majority of the outages were caused by equipment, trees, and wildlife. And the chart on the left, the pie chart, shows the 2017 year to date through April, that where we are with those. So this year we had a couple of storms that brought trees down, and these are unfortunately, there's nothing we can do with these pine trees and shallows to pine trees, tall trees, that they come down and they make extensive damage to the lines. So. But we are on those, we are also making good progress. The equipment, as you could see from the right to the left, that shrinking down, we started showing some of the maintenance programs that we have implemented, so it started showing that, we are in the right direction. So that concludes my report. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer the question.
Questions, anybody?
No?
No?
Good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay, general discussions, our next meeting is July 20th, and we're looking to schedule a strategic meeting. CAB meeting is next Wednesday, and I agreed to cover that. Couple things, since I'm signing the payroll, I'm the secretary for this month. Not the payroll, the warrant. I'm the secretary for this month. I don't think, we got a lot of minutes to approve at some point? So it'll be all next month? Yeah, 'cause I think it's been a little while since I've actually remember seeing it.
They're ready to go, they just didn't make it onto this one.
Okay, we can get them on the meeting. My last question, do we have, the big fire that was here in Reading, were we involved in anything on that? On the schoolhouse fire, on the condos there?
I would have to check the total reports. I mean, we responded, but I don't think we had any electrical issues, but I
Okay.
have to double check the total report.
Yeah.
Did you hear something?
I don't know, I just wondered what if we had a role, what our role was in that case. Living in a condo myself, and I heard that, I got a little concerned, to be honest with you.
Typically, if there's a fire or something, the fire department will respond and we pull meters so
Okay.
that they're de-energized.
I don't know for sure, but I thought there was some issues with respect to the sprinkler system, whether or not it was.
Well, I understand, what I've heard is that in that building there's an attic, and that's where the fire got in that attic, and just is very hard, difficult to get to in the attic. I mean, Dave, well, you may know better, because
It was
you live
2
right
doors
there.
down from my house. Yeah.
Oh,
really?
But I don't know the construction details, but
Yeah.
it's quite a scene.
Yes.
yeah, you must have felt it. And
Yeah, we were there.
Okay.
it's tough.
All
Yeah,
right.
it's tough for the residents.
Yeah. Do
Very
you have anything
different.
else for regular session? Any other discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session. Mr. O'Rourke,
Motion.
you want to read the motion, please?
I'll be happy to.
Yes?
Move that the board go into executive session to conduct business in relation to other entities, making, selling, and distributing electrical power, to consider the purchase of real property, and to discuss the strategy with respect to collective bargaining, and then to return to regular session for the sole purpose of adjournment.
Okay. That's been moved and seconded.
Second?
Okay. So poll the board. Mr. Hennessy?
Mr. Hennessy, aye?
Mr. Pacino, aye?
Mr. O'Rourke, aye.
Mr.
Talbot,
Talbot?
aye.
We move into executive session down the hall. Okay? Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Phil.